Hi guys, good evening and welcome back once again to The Edward. I'm your host Eddie, and in tonight's video I will be discussing what I thought of the latest and very good season finale for the Star Wars show, which sadly ended its first season tonight, but is definitely coming back for a second season, and sadly its final one as well. Andor, man, what an episode. Now, before I get into all of that, of course, please be warned, this is a spoiler-filled review, so if you're not caught up on Andor by the season finale, today's episode, you do not want to keep watching or listening, as I will be discussing spoilers, plot details, character stuff, all that jazz. Basically, spoilers are about to follow starting now. You have been warned. Let's get right back into it. So, first and foremost, I wished I could have loved this. I really liked it, but I didn't love it like I was hoping I would love it. I loved his mother's speech. I hated that we got confirmation that she actually was dead, that this wasn't some part of some brilliant ruse to, attack a bunch of stormtroopers and she comes out of her coffin, guns a-blazing. Sadly, that's not what happened, as amazing as that would have been. But I did love her fiery, passionate speech about no more sleeping and getting involved and doing the right thing and standing up to the Empire. And her last final recorded word was fight, and it inspired that entire crowd to rise up against their local Imperials, which was awesome. I think the reason why I didn't love this episode was because it was hard for me to get into the action a little bit, because it felt like cops dispersing protesters or an angry crowd. Like, if the rebels had weapons and they were firing or shooting back, and it felt like more of an even battle between the people of Ferrix and the stormtroopers, I probably would have liked it a lot more. But to me, it felt like stormtroopers were massacring people left and right, which was probably the point of this scene. The whole point of that sequence is to show us that's how a military dictatorship, treats unruly or protesting citizens, with death and bullets, or blasters in this case. So, I mean, the actiony stuff was kind of cool, but it was also kind of hard to watch because we were watching stormtroopers taking down running unarmed civilians, which is pretty dark and messed up if you think about it. But it was nonetheless a very good episode. I liked how all of our characters, except for Mon Mothma, of course, she didn't have much to do in this episode except show us that she's, inching ever closer to creating that alliance between herself and that sketchy banker guy from her homeworld by betrothing her daughter to his son, and therefore have a lot more easier access and looser funding for her funds and whatnot for the rebel cause. So she didn't have much to do in this episode, except they did check in with her, showing us what she's up to and how that storyline will probably unfold in season 2. But most of this story was about everybody converging on Ferrix for the funeral for different reasons. Luthen and his rebels were there to kill Andor to keep him from talking to the Empire. The Empire was there to capture him, use his mother's funeral as an excuse to lure him out, take him alive to extract him for information. Thankfully, he was able to avoid both. Well, not really avoid both, because he ends up on Luthen's ship, and he seems willing to sacrifice himself if it means his loved ones get away from Ferrix, because he rescues his old girlfriend, gets his droid, his worker friend, and that fellow Ferrix sister lady onto a ship and gets them off planet. And once they're safely off planet, he seems to be willing to lay down his life if it means they get away and they're left alone. And that is a very different Andor from the one we met earlier this season, who was very selfish, self-centered, was really thinking only about himself, and cared about others, but not to this extent. So I think that scene with Luthen when he says, "Kill me or take me in," and Luthen grins, seeing that this guy's got guts and he could be a useful asset to the rebellion, obviously takes him in. And so that was also an interesting character change on Andor's part. It was interesting to compare that scene to the beginning of this season, when he was no rebel hero. He was just a guy like a lot of people, just trying to get by, got involved in some bad things, and then did what he had to do to get out of them. But now he seems to have a more selfless attitude about himself and his fellow beings. So I'm glad that we got to see that change reflected in the final scene of this episode. Man, Mr. Tightass is simping hard for that ISB lady. I mean, for a weird second there, I thought, oh, don't let them kiss in the storeroom. Please don't show them kissing. Oh, good, they didn't. It was just awkward and weird and simpy. I was just like, yeah. So we'll see what happens with those two in season 2. But now that Andor seems to have fully accepted or fully joined, well, almost fully joined the rebellion by joining Luthen in the final scene there, it feels like things are really going to hit the ground running in season 2. I expect season 2 to be even bigger and better than the first season, because the first season was pretty great, don't get me wrong, but I feel like season 2 will definitely get us more into galactic civil war territory, like it kind of did in this first season. But I feel like season 2 is definitely going to amp it up quite a bit. So I hope you can all quote me on that once we eventually get season 2, whenever that is. The post-credit scene was interesting because it showed droids taking the pieces that Cassian and his fellow inmates had assembled while in prison. And sure enough, it was being used to help assemble and build the Death Star, which I guess isn't too shocking, but it was nice to know that's exactly what they were working on, because we were wondering, what are they working on? What are they assembling or building for the Empire? Is it something to do with the Death Star, or is it weapons or something else? And now we know it was for the Death Star, so pretty cool reveal there. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did, or if you enjoyed it even more than I did, that's great too. Let me know what you think of it or thought of it down below in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed this first season as much as I did. I'm going to have to go back and rewatch a few favorite episodes because they were very, very, very good. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. Andor Season 1 is now fully streaming on Disney Plus in its entirety. Don't know when we'll get Season 2 yet, but I will keep you guys updated and posted once I hear and learn more. Have a great rest of your night, everyone. Thanks for watching. And of course, until next time, may the Force be with you.